Welcome to episode 10 of Secrets of the Universe, Walking the Conscious Path with Steve Hasenberg. I'm Greg Agnew. This episode, like episode 9, is focused on beings of light. And one thing I wanted to ask Steve was about Buddha's story of how many lives we all have.
Greg, you asked the best questions.
Of course.
So it's a really interesting story because one day when Buddha was sitting with his disciples, somebody said, Buddha, I don't know what they called him, Buddha, how many lifetimes does a human being have? And he said, imagine that there's this gorgeous white bird. And every day this bird flies from the bottom of a valley to the top of a valley. And in the bird's beak, he has a skein of silk. And that silk runs from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. The amount of time it would take for that mountain to disintegrate would be the amount of lifetimes that we have on Earth.
Wow.
Right? That puts it in a different perspective, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So, where we ended the last video, we were talking about playwrights. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that we started the series with writing your great story, your great epic of your life. If we take Buddha's idea that we have a life, we die, we have a life, we die, and this goes on in succession. The point of all of that, from a Buddhist perspective, is learning. Learning to be a better friend to yourself. Learning to be someone who can resolve issues. What we learned from the NDEs was learning to love. Treating life as a schooling. That we're here, we're learning, there's a curriculum, there's a school. So the idea, I'm trying to make the idea of reincarnation simple. The idea is that we go from life to life, and we pass from life into these after-death stages, and they're very, very much alive. They're not like we die and we're buried in the ground 6 feet under. These stages we go through are rehearsal stages, and I'm going to talk about that in the next episode. The rehearsal stages of things that we watched in our review. I'll just review that for the people from our last tape on near-death experiences.
Right.
The review is looking at your life and seeing where you could have loved more, where you held back, where you could have helped more, where you could have been more tender, where you could have been more compassionate, where you could have resolved conflict. The after-death stages, actually people will spend time rehearsing, doing those things, so when they come back the next time, they'll be more agile and they'll be more adept.
Is there any sort of idea of what the time length is of the pauses in between individual lives?
Do I have any idea? I have none.
No.
I know we talked about the fact that I was a professor at Cambridge.
Right.
But I have no idea what year that was. I got a sense of it that it was maybe 30 or 1930s. I just don't know.
Right.
The Tibetans think it's 49 days for a very advanced Lama. And so when a Lama dies, or a Dalai Lama dies, in Tibet they will consult an oracle, and the oracle will go into a trance. And then in that trance we'll see a town somewhere in Tibet. It's always Tibet. Somewhere in Tibet there'll be a town, and they'll get a birth date, and then a group of holy men will go out and try to find that baby.
Wow.
And that baby becomes the next Dalai Lama.
Right.
But what I want to do is go back to the idea of being a playwright. Mm-hmm. Okay? So it's as if in the heavenly state we have a complete knowledge of all of the lifetimes we've had before. That's wide open to us. There's a great fluency. And I'm saying this not because I've had that experience consciously, but I've read about it in the near-death experiences. And so there's a great fluency with all the lifetimes you've had, and then you're going to go into a new lifetime, and in some way it's like central casting. Because you're picking people from other lifetimes that you've had love with, that you've been a father or a mother to, that you've been very angry with, that you've been an enemy toward, and you put all of these people together. Obviously, it's a soulful kind of creation, a constellation that becomes your life going forward.
So it's not just an individual experience then, it's a
collective.
A collective.
Right.
And so all of your energies are coordinating in these paths?
Right, and so you're actually, it's like throwing the dice in a way, but as Einstein said, God doesn't play dice with the universe. So it's a dice throw, but it's a throw with wisdom. And so you're setting up certain possibilities moving into a life, like a playwright would have a certain setting, would have certain characters, would have certain themes. And so here's what the Buddha said. Again, I keep coming back because we have a lot of information about what the Buddha said. They've kept those texts. They're in what's called the Pali language. And so the Buddha said right after he attained enlightenment, he was going into the state of liberation, and he saw himself being born. He saw every mother that he was ever born to. He saw every town that he had ever lived in. He saw every life circumstance that he ever walked through. And he said, all that came to me in an instant.
Wow.
So as a soul, we have that experience, that knowledge, that wisdom, that depth, that interconnectedness. And that's cast ahead of us into time and space, because as a soul, we're in an eternal space, and a fragment of our soul goes ahead of us and becomes a new lifetime. That doesn't mean that everything is predestined. It just means that there's a form to it, there's an outline to it. And every human being has free will. And so that free will is that every moment you can make a choice. You can choose hatred, you can choose love, you can choose sadness, you can choose happiness, you can choose a love. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. These things that we go through in life, we have free will about.
So one thing that comes up again and again is feeling more love and
Right.
absorbing more love
Right.
and being open to more love.
Right.
So as you go through each of these lives,
Right.
is that kind of the ultimate test? I passed.
I've said it before, Greg, you're getting an A in this class.
Yes.
So yeah, the overarching experience is how can I come back to who I really am, given my life circumstances, my life's losses, the death that happens, the business failures, the successes, the joys. How can I keep coming back to what the NDEs told us? Where can I love more? How can I be unconditionally loving, even in a setting of illness, even in a setting of adversity? How quickly can I recover? It's one thing I work with my clients about. I say it's not a matter of not feeling sad, not feeling angry, not feeling like a failure sometimes. It's a matter of how fast we can recover and remember again who we really are, the truth of ourselves, why we're here, and recover love for ourselves again and love for other people. So this brings me to maybe the most important thing of this video, not the series, but this one.
Right.
Which is, when I began to see these auras, and seeing them in public, I realized that everyone was a light being. Not just some few of us, there were an elite group that had light around their body. Everybody had light around their body. What did that mean? That meant that souls were coming, taking different forms, different religions, different colors, different socioeconomic status, in order to play out their particular drama in this lifetime based on 100 or 1,000 other lifetimes they had. That the journey going forward was their unique and special journey. And because I started seeing that, I realized, how can I judge them? How can we really judge anybody? Obviously, if somebody does something that's evil, we judge them, right? But apart from that, we also go, that was their choice. Mm-hmm. They had the choice to move toward love, but they chose fear. They chose to rob a bank rather than get a job. Or somebody's suffering so much, and in some way they choose to suffer, and there are choices to be made. I remember what the Dalai Lama said. After he was in the United States, and he was being interviewed after a tour for the first time, one of the journalists said, "What did you do with your hatred toward the Chinese?" And he said, "I'm going to tell you the truth. I hated them every day of my life for 10 years. I hated them from 1959, when I was exiled, to 1969. One day I was meditating, and I realized that I was sending the Chinese the same energy, the hatred and animosity that they were using to kill my people." He said, on that day I decided to change, and I began sending them loving kindness. And you know what happened? I started eating Chinese food again. So the idea is that if, instead of condemning somebody, we do that initially. Somebody does something that hurts us, we condemn them. We hate them, we're angry with them, we're frustrated by them. Could be somebody close to us, it could be somebody in the political realm. It could happen like that. So instead of that, what the Buddhists do is they send them loving kindness. They send them compassion. Because if we send them hatred, this hatred spirals like a snowball.
Right.
And that hatred brings us to a lower place on the evolutionary ladder. We want to get to a higher place of the evolutionary ladder of resolution, conflict resolution, talking, communication, listening, understanding, being with somebody in a state of friendship.
Which we're seeing less of now than any time in our recent history. So for the average person, how do they get beyond that? How do they get beyond being judgmental? Because we're designed to be very judgmental. How do we get beyond being separate from the other side and send them the love to feel that?
Yeah, perfect, Greg. Good lead in. So there are four types of people, and then this will begin to answer the question. In sociology, they say they're egocentric people who are just interested in self. You could call them narcissists, self-obsessed. The second group of people is called ethnocentric people. That is, they're obsessed with their group.
Right.
My group is better than your group. Black is better than white. White is better than black.
My religion's better than yours. Right.
Right. My dog is prettier than whatever.
My neighborhood's better than yours.
Republicans are better than Democrats. That's ethnocentric.
Right.
The third stage is called world-centric, which may have been the initial and ideal of what the UN was going to be at one point, taking on the whole world as an integrated unit and working together that way for the betterment of all. And then the fourth stage is integrated, which is a true unity experience. Some of the things we talked about, NDEs, sacred experience, my experience, a unity experience of life. But if I go back to the second one, we're in the first a lot, egocentric. We're in the realm of the selfie.
Right.
Everything is about myself, right? That's egocentric.
I'm on social media. This is what I'm eating today. This is what I'm doing today. Look at me.
Look at my pie.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Look how my strawberries glisten. Yeah. So if we go to the next one, which is ethnocentric, before I did this today, I thought I might talk about this. I looked it up. I was shocked. What it said in Google was that etnocentricity is 70% of humanity now.
Isn't that what causes war, though?
Yes.
70%.
70%.
Wow.
Muslims against the Jews, Palestinians against the Israelis, Republicans. We are in a state of great divisiveness. So did you want to ask anything about that, or should I head on?
No, I think that speaks for itself, because we're all seeing it. We're seeing it on the news every day.
Aren't we?
Yeah.
And we're in it, and it causes so much anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, all my clients are coming in with their hair on end. When will it stop?
Right.
There's too much anxiety. We can't keep track of everything. There's too much hatred.
So we need a unified way to get to the next stage, to number 3.
Right. So my answer is the same answer. Come to my workshops, in a way. But the answer is stillness. The answer is meditation. The answer is extending your heart. The answer is practicing compassion. The answer is doing a garden. The answer is getting on top of a mountain. The answer is remembering who you are. The only answer is remembering who you are. That's the singular answer of all of this. And that remembrance of who you are is a spiritual remembrance of the soul. The soul, by definition and intrinsically, is loving. This is who we are. We're loving. We're limitless. We're timeless. We're eternal. We're pure joy. Getting in touch with that in any way that you want to brings you to the next level.
So in episode 11, what are we touching on?
Episode 11 is, I can't wait to get there. It's called Original Blessing. And it's about studies done on old texts that predate the Bible, where the person who discovered this realized that there was nothing ever in the Bible about original sin in the New Testament.
Thank you for watching episode 10 of Secrets of the Universe, Walking the Conscious Path with Steve Hasenberg. I'm Greg Agnew.